In this tutorial, we will be demonstrating how to use the VDI session, special folder, and environment variables for rule items using the VDI toolkit. So why do we need these? Well, sometimes we may want to provide a value for a rule item property where the information would not be known till runtime. An example of this would be if we wanted to create a registry modification rule that updates the Citrix client or Citrix Receiver client hostname registry key with the hostname of the client a user is connecting from to their virtual desktop. Also, sometimes due to folder redirection, we may not know the folder path to items such as the desktop. This can be helpful with dealing with file and folder paths so we can create generic rules that will apply for any user whether they're using folder redirection or not. Okay, so first let's talk about environment variables. So environment variables, we use them just like we would anywhere else in like batch scripts or anything like that. And I have an example right here with the system root. You can also use custom ones and they will work as well too if you have custom ones set up on your virtual desktop master image. Next, let's talk about special folder variables. So special folder variables are enclosed in brackets and they come in handy especially in scenarios where folder redirection is being used. So let's go ahead and define the special folder variables that you can use. So we have application data, which is the directory that serves as a common repository for application-specific data for the current roaming user. We have common application data, the directory that serves as a common repository for application-specific data that is used by all users. We have the file system or common desktop directory, which is the file system directory that contains files and folders that appear on the desktop for all users. We have common documents, which is the file system directory that contains documents that are common to all users. We have the desktop, which is the logical desktop rather than the physical file system location. And we also have desktop directory, which is the directory used to physically store file objects on the desktop. So don't confuse that with desktop, as that's just a virtual folder. Next, we have the local application data, the directory that serves as a common repository for application-specific data that is used by the current non-roaming user. My documents, which is the directory that serves as a common repository for documents. Program files, so in a non-x86 process returns the path for non-x86 programs. To get the x86 program files directory in a non-x86 process, use the program files x86 member. And then of course we got the program files x86, which is the x86 program files folder. Start menu, which is the directory that contains the start menu items. Startup, which is the directory that corresponds to the user's startup program group. The system starts these programs whenever a user logs on or starts Windows. System, which is the system directory. System x86, which is the Windows system folder. User profile, which is the user's profile folder. And Windows, which is the Windows directory or sysroot. Next, we have VDI Session Variables. And with these, they're enclosed in percent symbols, just like environment variables. And they come in handy when needing to populate values for rule items with VDI session information, such as client hostname, etc. So let's just define the VDI session variables that you have access to. So we have the view client broker DNS name, which is the DNS name of the view connection server instance. We have the broker domain name, which is the domain name used to authenticate to the view connection server. We have the broker farm ID, which specifies the farm ID of the desktop or application pool on a RDS host. We have the broker gateway location, which is the client location, whether it's connecting internal or external. We have the broker remote IP address, which is the IP address of the client system that is seen by the connection server instance. So obviously if it's an internal, it'd be an internal IP address. If it was connecting externally, it would be their external IP address. We have the view client broker tunneled, and that's the status of the tunnel connection for the connection server, which can either be true or false. We have the broker username, which is the username used to authenticate to the connection server. We have the view client version, which is the version of the client being used to connect to the virtual desktop. We also have the view client IP address, which is the IP address of the client system. We have the view client launch session type, and that specifies the session type. The type can be desktop or application. View client logged on username, that's the username that was used to log into the client system. So you can actually see the username of what they used to log into the computer and what they're logged in as before they log into the virtual desktop. We have the view client MAC address, which is the MAC address of the client. The machine name is the host name of the client system. We also have which protocol, so the view client protocol, that specifies which protocol is being used, like BLAST, PCOIP, or RDP. And we have view client type, and that's the thin client name or operating system of the client system. So if you're using a zero client, like a Teradici or something like that, you'd be able to see that there. We have view client Windows time zone, which is the time zone on the client system. And we also have the virtual desktop name, which is the host name of the virtual desktop they're connected to, and the user SAM account name, which is the SAM account name of the user logged into the virtual desktop. So up next, we'll demonstrate how to use VDI session, special folder, and environment variables using the VDI toolkit. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So first, what I want to do is just show you in the management console, and I have that running on a virtual desktop. So I'll go ahead and go there and I'll open up the management console. All right, once open, I'll go ahead and expand that. And I'm just going to navigate and show an example. So I'm going to go to rules, rule items, and app automation. And as you can see right here, and I'll take and I'll edit, I'm actually using an environment variable right here for the executable file path. And just so you know, you can use a VDI session variable, you can use a special folder variable, whatever. And this is an example of that being used here. So I'll go ahead and close this. Next one I want to show is I want to show you actually in a virtual desktop some of those values that could be populated and actually demonstrate all of them. So I'll go ahead and minimize this. And I have another virtual desktop I'm logged into, and I have a little application here to run and actually show those. So let's go ahead and expand this. Okay, and so we can look here and we can actually see I have the special folder variables and the VDI session variables listed. So we can actually see right here and see on this desktop one how I'm actually using folder redirection. It's not stored locally. So you're able to easily access that if you're using profiles or whatnot. Same with the desktop directory here. And let's see some more examples. The My Documents, which is obviously redirected as well too. And all of these. And then on the VDI session variables, we can see like the connection server, the domain, the which farm ID, which is the pool, gateway location, it's internal, remote IP address, which is obviously an internal IP address. I mean, you can get the URL that they connected to, client ID, client version, let's see, machine name. So here's time zone, Central Standard Time, virtual desktop name, and the actual username, the SAM account name for the user. So this kind of just demonstrates all those items and how they're populated, and those will be updated when you use them in rules. All right, well, I hope you found this tutorial useful, and thank you.